Okay, we will start today's lecture. Today we will be mainly discussing induction generators. So far we have been mostly discussing motor operation of induction machines. And but before we do that, I think there are a few aspects of speed control remaining to be covered. We have covered mostly the slip ring machine, squirrel cage machine control. And we had basically it has to either you have to control the frequency, control the slip, or control the poles. And the recent trend is to a large extent to use the variable frequency drives. So in generally the present day you have three-phase supply, then you have convert into DC, and then from DC to AC you use an inverter, and these are now fairly standardized, and there are VLSI chips available to do the control for your thyristors or IGBTs, and then you can get variable frequency at the motor terminals. Now you also are concerned with two things. One is any change in speed has to be affected quickly in many applications like in robotics or machine tools and such things. So quick response is important. And to achieve that, the DC motor has been considered to be very good for any such quick response, because the torque, any additional torque will automatically come to picture by additional currents. But it's not possible in induction machine. There is always certain time lag. Therefore, the present trend in last few years have been to make the induction motor have the same characteristic of a DC motor by having so-called field oriented control. Because in the induction DC machine you always maintain the angle between the stator and rotor fields 90 degrees by the commutator. So here that is one of the activities, and it is more or less getting into a mature technology. So there are what are 6-step inverters. That means the inverters are, because when you have DC to AC you can't have easily a sinusoidal, and to make it sinusoidal we use what is known as pulse width modulation. That means usually this may be the waveform of the AC. Now you can make it, but you would like to make it sinusoidal. So one of the techniques which are now fairly used is PWM, as pulse width modulation. That means you can control the width such that the center ones are of a higher width, the middle portion, and the end near 0 is of a smaller width. This is called you are modulating the pulse width, and this switching can be done at high frequency. So this is high frequency switching. Maybe even up to 10 kilohertz. That means when you are switching that means you are trying to get as nearly a sinusoidal as possible. Okay, so that is the idea of a pulse width modulation. And then in this part modulation you can control waveform, and you can control also the magnitude, because if you are more off times than on times, the RMS value of the waveform will also change. So you are able to get what is known as V control, F control, and waveform control. So all the three things are possible electronically nowadays. So these are now have become a fairly standard, chips are available, and you can use this waveforms. And another point which I told you is called a scalar control or a vector control. In a scalar control, it is open loop control. You just control V by F and you control the speed of a motor. But that is there you don't ensure that that the angle between the stator rotor fields are, it will assume any angle delta. Now the vector control or field oriented control is that you try to push currents into the windings in such a way and such an instant that the fields are so created as to be at quadrature with the rotor fields. So that is called a field oriented control. Okay. So that is also I mean these are, of course there is no time for details of this, but you should know this. Now for all these things, if you want to create a field, stator and rotor field, then you must know the position of the rotor. So often the rotor position will be critical. How do you get the rotor position? Either you measure the speed and integrate that. You have digital encoders from where you position the rotor, and then that's what you will have. And also you so that way you must sense the current and you must sense the speed. So these are the motor must have facilities for sensing these things. That means your motor must be made slightly in a different way. Not a regular motor will not be possible. And there are also analog controls and digital controls. Okay. Now analog controls will be mostly using devices, and digital control there could be more programming can be there. So the present trend is to have more softwares and less hardwares in the control. That means you can do this. That is one of the trend, more soft. Then another issue which we discussed was the quick response is critical. Okay. Now since this is the high end of technology, it is necessary for you to know what is important. Okay. Other issue you are concerned is about slip ring motor control. Okay. Because these are mostly in high power range, maybe a few megawatts range, and they are mostly in some application like cranes, hoists, sometimes maybe conveyors, lifts, etc. Some of these things you would like to control the speed, and the method that is one method is the rotor resistance control. So what you do is you just increase this is the torque speed characteristic. If you don't connect any rotor resistance, let us say R external is 0, right? Then you can go on increasing this. You are aware that you can get family of characteristics by adding resistance in the rotor circuit. So with the maximum torque remaining the same, so you can have. So this may be R1, R2, R3. So this you are aware. That means if you want to connect a load, this is load, so it will operate at different speeds where there is a intersection point. Let us say N, N1, N2, N3. Okay. This is one of the way where at the slip rings of the motor, this is the slip rings, you connect some resistance. This is the R external and short it. Okay. I mean at the slip rings you have brushes, and at the end instead of directly shorting it, you can just connect this thing. Okay, that's one of the factors that are done. But what is the disadvantage of this? It is inefficient. There are more losses in this external circuit, right? This is inefficient. And if you want half of the speed to run, that means whatever air gap power, half of the air gap power goes into this, right? So especially at higher slips or lower speeds, it is more inefficient. Though so long as it's for a short time, this can be acceptable. Therefore, you imagine that it is a 1 megawatt machine. If it is running at half speed, that means half megawatt goes into heating. Therefore, that is one of the major concerns. So the next stage of this is, can you recover this power? right? Whatever power which you would have otherwise dissipated in resistors, you can recover that. So that is one of the steps which are used, called as slip power or slip energy recovery. Okay. At low speeds, you recover that energy which would have gone into this. That means, how do you recover that? Supposing this is the motor and you have the slip rings and you have the slip power. Okay. So if this is power P, now this will be the slip times power goes here, and this will be 1 minus slip times power goes to the mechanical load, isn't it? Neglecting other things. If the power going into air gap is this, so if 50%, if it is running at 50% speed, this will be 50%, this is 50%. If it is running at 20% speed, then one will be 80% and another will be 20%. So 20%, if slip is S is 0.2, then the 20% goes here and 80% goes here. Okay. So if S is 0.3, 30% goes here and 70% goes here. Therefore, can we recover that 60, whatever is the slip power. Okay. Now, one way to recover there are two ways to do it. You can have some type of a converter, okay, and then feed it mechanically here. Okay. Let us say this is C1. C1 converts slip power to mechanical power. That is, right. So you have made some connected to a shaft. You may have another motor which will use this power. So the total power that will be now available here will be how much? 1 minus S and plus this will be. So this whole power is now available here. Okay. So you are feeding back to the this thing. Okay. And another possibility is the same slip power you have another converter, let us say call it as C2, and instead of feeding to the shaft, you feeding to the mains. Okay. So this is SP, this will be 1 minus SP. So what will be the power? This will, so if this is P goes to the motor, then SP goes to the rotor and it is brought back here. So what will be the one which will be from mains? How much it is giving you now? 1 minus SP. Now P, the supply will be 1 minus SP. No? So that same 1 minus, that means you are having less power from the mains, okay, to this. So these are the two ways of doing things. Well, that the slip power either is fed to the shaft or fed to the mains. And these were one of the earlier, these were very popular, and the people who gave these schemes called two persons called Scherbius and Kramer. These are the two persons. So they were once upon a time, they were very, very popular. Scherbius drive and Kramer drive. Okay. These were the two engineers who developed this. Okay. Now we can see how it can be done. Earlier it was all done in using some commutator machines and so on. Okay. Nowadays it can all be done without any other rotating machines. You use solid state devices. So I will only give you some block diagram of possible schemes as follows. One scheme could be, you can have a rectifier. I hope you know what is a rectifier. So from SF, you can have a DC here. and that will go, you connect a DC motor here, okay. So that will go here to the DC motor. So to the same shaft there is additional motor, so that DC motor will also give additional torque to the same shaft. So you have this SP, this S times power is converted to the same thing, S times power. Of course the mains will be giving you the power, okay. This is one scheme in which you are feeding power to the shaft by a rectifier and a DC motor system, okay. Another way is, another variant of this you have a rectifier and you have a DC machine, okay, and then you connect to an induction generator, okay, and this will go, induction generator will feed power to the mains, it's connected to the mains. So this is DC, this is rectifier, this is induction generator. Because induction generator, when once you feed this power SP, so that goes to the mains. So this is a combination of some rectifier circuits and rotating machines, okay. Then another variant of this is using solid state devices. So you follow this method. You have a rectifier and you have an inverter. So this will be SF, this will be 0 and this will be F, and that will go to the mains. So this is called a line commutated inverter. Because inverter had devices which have to be switched on and off. So you switch on by having an extra signal and you switch off by the line, because line itself will switch it off. This is called a line commutated inverter, and this is called a static Kramer drive. And this is one of the very prevalent and very widely used system. So the motor, you convert this rectifier and have an inverter and feed it to the mains, because all this involvement you take mainly for utilizing of the extra power which would have gone waste otherwise, okay. So these are the schemes of speed control, because that is important for you to know, okay. Now we will take up the aspect of induction generator. I mean, it is a fact that induction machines are mostly used for motor operation, okay, and very limited use of induction generator. And what is an induction generator? What is induction machine operated as a generator. So as a generator, what you should do, that means you are feeding some power through the shaft and getting power into the from the terminals and feed to the mains, okay. So that is an induction generator, okay. Now since last 20 years it has become very important, that's why I thought I should inform you. There is what is known as a grid connected induction generator. That one variety is grid connected induction, that is induction generator connected to grid, to the mains, okay. So we call it as grid connected induction generator, GCIG, okay, to the mains. Now what are its, why are they important today? Practical applications are, they are used in wind electric systems. All over the world today, wind energy is being tapped, and India is the 5th country in the world in terms of total installed capacity, and only other 4 countries are Denmark, USA, Germany and Spain. These are the 4 countries, and India is the 5th in terms of this. Wind systems are installed in several zones which has a high wind potential. The leading one is Tamil Nadu, followed by Gujarat, and of course there are installations in Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka and part of Orissa, and many sites are being identified. Now in this wind electric systems, they use induction generators, because wind is such, it varies, wind speed varies, and the power in wind varies as a cube of the wind speed. That is the general formula. If the wind speed is running at say 5 meters per second, it will give you some P. At 10 meters per second, it will give you P cube. Okay. So the power that is given to the shaft will go on varying. So it has to be converted into the electrical power and fed to the grid. So whatever you are feeding to the grid will go on changing with the wind speed. Okay. Now initially it was started with a small unit. First in 80s it was started with 11 kilowatt. That was the one which was first started, okay, and installed, and then it gradually the power rating increased. Okay. Now it increased. Next it what was developed was 33 kilowatts, next 55 kilowatt, next 110 kilowatts, next 220 kilowatt, next 300 kilowatt, next 400 kilowatt, single unit, then 750 kilowatt, then 1000 kilowatt, and now nearly 1500 kilowatt single units are being produced and installed. And so you can see the development which has taken place in last 20 years. So you will have a single unit wind electric systems. In India we have installed around 750 in a place near Kanyakumari. Okay, and there are several planes, and these are installed both onshore and offshore. Okay. In fact, wind systems, there are enough winds on the sea, so outside, so we can develop energy and then bring it back to the shores by the cables. Okay, and most of the systems which are now installed in Germany are offshore. Okay, so there are several sites, both onshore and offshore sites are installed, and of very high capacities. Of course, you must appreciate that this is a really involved technologies. A wind electric system has almost all areas of engineering. It has aerodynamics, it has material science, it has electrical engineering, it has electronics, it has computers, it has civil engineering. Okay, so almost all engineering areas are there. Okay, so it is, and even ocean technology, and meteorology, wind planning and seeing. Okay. Now the other one where induction generators are used are mini hydro systems, or a small hydro up to about 1 megawatt. They are also installed because it is very simple and robust machines. Okay. Now the schematic diagram we can draw is as follows. In a wind system, mostly it is all horizontal axis wind turbines. Not very few vertical axes are there. So you have the wind. Now that will operate a wind turbine. It will operate a wind turbine, and generally it is connected to a gearbox. And then you have a induction generator. and then of course you bring it down. This is on the, all these units are on the top, and top where it is kept is called nacelle. That is the name of the unit. Nacelle is the sort of a boat on the above. Okay, it's moving, and it always moves in the direction of the wind, and then this is brought down through the cables, and you normally step it up to this may be around 415 volts. You step it up to about 11 kV, okay, and feed it to the grid. This is a typical scheme of a wind electric system which are used. Okay. Now, whatever power in the wind will go to the grid, because induction generator is such that whatever power that comes here, it will convert it. That means it will run it at super synchronous speed and go on feeding power to the grid. So the power will go on, it is a varying power depending upon the wind speed. Okay. In hydro systems, it is similar. You have the water flow and you have the turbine, hydro turbine. Hydro turbine will run an induction generator. Okay. These are also installed, and again it will have a step up like this and feed it to the grid. So these are the schemes which are being used. Whatever power is in the hydro, only thing is here, here the P varies as the cube of wind speed. Here P is nearly constant, because so long as water level is constant, so power here is constant. So the same constant power is fed to the grid. Okay. So this is in mini hydro systems they have been having this with row control on the turbine. Okay. Now an induction machine, what is the difference motor and generator is the slip becomes negative. You see, when slip is negative, so your equivalent circuit is simple. We can neglect the core loss for the simplicity. So it is RR by S, where S is negative, right? All other, this is Vs, this is Vg, and actually this will be Im. What will be the direction of current? As a generator, so current will be, so actually this will be the direction of current IR, and this will be the current IS. So current is now going to the grid. This is the main difference that you will find in the equivalent circuit. Okay. So there is a current going out like this because slip is negative. So you are feeding power here. You are feeding power into the rotor. After all, your whole system is, you are feeding power here and you are taking out power here at the terminals. You are taking out power. So the power flow has reversed. It goes from rotor to the air gap to the stator to the terminals. Okay. So your power flow is the other way around. But because S is negative, it has run super synchronous speed, right? We have seen that your operating thing will be like this. S is negative from 0. Otherwise, it was motoring, then it has gone into generating. Okay. So if you draw a power flow diagram, let us say you have the power input which is mechanical. Your power input is mechanical from an external turbine or a prime mover, and certain power goes into friction windage, isn't it? At the mechanical loss will be there. So what you have is power input electrical. It will be, we will say it is. Then you have the rotor copper loss. Okay. Then what you have here is What do you have here? PG, air gap power. You have fed something to the shaft minus friction windage goes into electrical input power minus rotor copper loss, then you have the PG, and then you can have, let us say, core loss and stator copper loss, and this will be output power. So this will be in mechanical form and this will be electrical form. This will be fed to the shaft, this will be fed to the terminals. So this will be the power flow. Is it clear? We have just reversed what was happening in the motor. Okay. Now one more thing here is, you must understand where will the reactive power come from. Active power is okay. You have, because from the shaft, from the wind turbine, you are giving to the grid, but you require certain reactive power mainly because to produce the flux in the machine, right? Wind will not give you that reactive power, or a water will not give you that reactive power. Therefore, the interesting thing here is that you have an induction generator which is driven by a prime mover, right? You are feeding to the grid. Okay, so P goes here, right? P is no problem, P is fed to the grid, but it has to take Q from here, from the grid. Okay, reactive power has to come from the grid. That is one of the interesting factor of this, right? So the current here that will going here will have Ix and Iy. Ix goes one direction, Iy is in the other direction. Okay, so that's what thing you must understand. The P is fed to the grid and Q is taken from the grid. So now, can you reduce the reactive power demand from the grid? Because that is because all electricity boards are opposing wind systems because they have to give them reactive power from the mains. How do you reduce the reactive power demand? Is there any way you can reduce? Because Q has to come from the grid to give to this induction generator to produce the magnetizing current, to draw a magnetizing current. How do you think you can reduce? Add capacitors, right? So you can, what you can do is, that's one of the things which is done. So you have a capacitor. So the reactive power, that means let us say this capacitor, let us say this is Q from the grid, let us say capacitor gives you QC, then here the what will be Q plus QC goes to the grid, goes to the machine. Therefore, if the total requirement is some Q star, so Q star minus QC will be what the grid will fall, right? So you can have that is one of the important factors. So you invariably find everywhere the capacitors are connected to reduce the wire drain from the grid. Okay. Now let us look at a phasor diagram, okay, of this. I will take because you are comfortable with motoring conventions, I will not change the direction. We only use the motoring convention and make slip to be negative. Is it okay? Use the same motoring convention and make slip to. Let us start with Vg. Air gap power, air gap voltage. Okay, and if we look at that phasor diagram, this air gap voltage, it will have a IM, it will draw. Okay, Vg. So let us say it will draw IM, right? Okay, now the current that will be, let us assume that rotor circuit is mostly resistive because of low slips. We will say the IR is in phase with Vg, right? Let us say motoring convention if you use, Vg it was in phase with, if it was a motor it would be like this. Okay. Now if it goes to 0 slip, it will go here. As a generator, where will that be? So it will be IR, opposite direction, because your IR, this will be IR as a motor, because IR has reversed now, right? Rotor current has reversed the direction at negative slip. This is at positive slip, this is a 0 slip, this is a negative slip. Okay, in positive slip it will be in phase in the IR with the same direction as if IR is going out of the VG. Okay, now what will happen to, that means I have used the same conventions. So we will say this is IR, this is IM, and this is IS. IS will be, what will be IS? Sum of IM plus IR. Okay. So where will that be? So it will be somewhere here. Okay. That will be IS. So as a motoring, supposing as a motoring it would have been here. As a generating it will be here, because your IR has reversed. So this is IR motoring, IR generating. Is it okay? So your rotor current has the one which has reverse. I am taking, if this is yes, this is minus S, right? IR becomes minus IR, and so your IS is here. Okay, VG is here. And where will be your Vs will be? Vg you have to add, okay, Vg plus Is into impedance, okay. You add that, so maybe Vg you add this somewhere here and maybe here. So you will have some Vs here. That this is the stator impedance drop. Stator impedance drop. Because you have to add this drop, no? To the Vg you have to add this drop. Okay. So I have not changed my direction of convention. This is written as a motor convention. Motoring convention, currents are all going out from Vg, and that is what it is. So what do you get it? If you use the same motor convention, what will be the power? Power is Vs into Is into cos phi s. So cos phi s is this, phi s is this. What do you notice here? Is P positive or negative? Why? Because phi s is more than 90 degrees. So power taken in, because this is all power input to the stator, because motoring convention. So power input to the stator is negative. Okay. Now if you want to use a generating convention, all you have to do is, in a generating convention you are taking out like this. Vg and IR. So I have reversed this. Whatever was Is, IR earlier, I have reversed this. That's all. Okay. If I reverse this, so you have Vg and Im no change. That will remain as it is, because I have not changed that. So IR is now, I have changed it, so this will be IR, okay, and then this will be so this current will be IR. What will be this current if I go this way? So the question is IS will be IR minus IM. This IS, because I have taken IS to be going out of the VG into VS, right? So it will be IR minus IM somewhere here. So you will have IS here, right? And that means you will find that IS as a motor, as a generator, would be just opposite to what was as a motor. See, IS was here as a motor, it will go here as a generator. Okay. Then what will be VS will be VG minus IS into RS plus JXS. Whatever is the air gap power minus this. So you have this IS, so you will have minus IS, okay, and then minus. So your VS will also be there only. Okay. So what will be this phi s now? So what was earlier 180 minus the earlier phi s. Okay. So this will be your phi s. And here you will notice that IS leads VS. So here power input again will be VS IS cos phi s. It appears little tricky, but I think it requires some calm thinking and meditation to understand this, okay? Because it did take enough time for me to make it understand to engineers at Kirloskar, because when we made the first induction generator in India in 1985-86. So at that time all this theory I had to explain to the engineers there, okay? Because they were saying, what is this leading current, how will it come, and so on. Because I thought, as if it's a leading current, you can just feed power as a synchronous condenser. This leading current is one which is taking, actually this current has to be compensated for, okay? So the performance equations, it is very clear. Yes. So we can write down the performance equations of the machines. You have the P mechanical, anyway is P input, okay, and P input electrical is equal to P input minus FW. Now this will be equal to PG plus PCUR, isn't it? This is whatever is the gap power plus this. Now gap power will continue to be 3 times IR square RR by S, where S is negative. So the gap power, then you have, for this you have to add 3 times IR square RR, that will be the rotor copper loss, or S times. Now S is again negative, so you have to take appropriate conventions accordingly, okay. So output power is P out, that will be 3 times VSIS cos phi s, stator core PCUS, and core loss is this. Of course, these are all these don't change as far as the power flow is concerned. Then input power will be P mechanical, whatever you are giving, whatever the power you are, actually that will be minus friction windage, okay. Air gap power is 3 times IR square RR by S, rotor copper losses, and developed power will be PD. It's not developed power, it is actually out, this is whatever is the gap power plus, it should be same, gap power plus this is the power input, okay. So you have to rewrite the mechanical performance equations to get the characteristics of this one. Okay, and then you can also find out the developed torque. Developed torque will be whatever it is basically input torque. It will be input torque. So T input will be power input divided by omega input, isn't it? Input power, input torque you are giving is, so this you can calculate, and the speed you may know is 1 plus s times omega s. Since s is negative, speed is above the synchronous speed. So you can calculate these equations. I suggest, because of you can work it out the details, because s is negative. Okay, so we have completed, we have given you a brief overview of the induction generator. So you have to write down equivalent circuit, phasor diagram, and performance equations, right? And I suggest that you try to derive these performance equations. You can start from motor equations and make s equal to minus s, and see how it looks like. But you must make sure that the power flow is in the opposite direction. So next class we will discuss about self-excited induction generators and also single phase induction motors. Okay.